All right, guys. I think we're live and good to go here. Tyson, bro, we had breaking news come out like, I don't know, 5 minutes ago here. New York Giants signing quarterback Russell Wilson 1 year. I think it's 1 year, 10.5 mil, up to 21 mil, in total. Of course, based in with incentives and whatnot. But it's a pretty, in my opinion, seismic move that kind of, potentially changes the landscape of the NFL draft. I just don't see the Giants signing Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. By the way, Jameis Winston got a 2-year deal. 2-year deal, what was it? 2 year, 8 mil for them to then go out and invest the third overall pick in another quarterback, and you're essentially showing up to training camp with 3 new QBs. And I think it was also just reported literally like a minute before we clicked on, go live here, that Russ is going to be the starter for New York here. So, yeah, what's kind of your initial takeaway with that? And by the way, hopefully everyone can hear and see me okay. I plugged my mic after after joining.
You're good.
All right, cool.
So this is why you fired Dable and Shane in the offseason, because the Giants are ridiculously desperate to win this year or they're going to get fired. And now they're doing this, and it's like, it's embarrassing, man. Like, what do you do? What is your vision here? So now you're going to spend all this money on 2 veteran quarterbacks and then bring in what? Shador to do what? It's not good roster management. It's not good cap management. It's not a good plan. It just comes off desperate. So are they trying to trade up and they're getting turned down? Like, listen, you know what? The Titans are saying, we're taking Cam Ward. Shador Sanders not going to be available. And here we are. And it's like, hey, I think it's just comical. Like, everybody makes fun of the Jets. The Giants' plan right now is embarrassing. It literally is. They are a rudderless ship right now that'll all be gone in a year.
Yeah, it's well, I will say this: adding Russ as a starter, like if you're a fan and you throw Russell Wilson out there, like you're getting a better, like, say what you want about him last season. Oh, didn't win the playoff game, and wasn't all that electrifying. Obviously, not the same player that he was back in Seattle. And by the way, for everyone in the chat, we're definitely gonna get to some Jet stuff too. But this Russ news just broke, so figured, might as well dive into it. But at least the Giants have an option that they can throw out there. He's been durable. He's gonna pick up the system pretty well. He's not going to be out there confused, because that's the real concern with Jameis Winston is the turnovers. He's going to cost you games by just launching the ball deep or taking these brutal sacks. Now, for context, I think both Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson are better than legit everyone that they had last year. Yep. So I do think you can argue that point. Like, can you really hate on the Giants if they brought in 2 quarterbacks, which are, again, better than everyone that they had a year ago?
You can hate on the Giants when you're saying, what, like, the Giants aren't a Super Bowl team this year or a playoff team this year. So what exactly is your plan? What is your long-term plan? You have Tommy DeVito, who's not going to, so now you're going to have these 2 veteran quarterbacks, which could prevent you from drafting a quarterback high, and then you're going to get a quarterback later on and do what with it? Like, to me, it just doesn't make, listen, Giants can do whatever they want. I find it like, the Jets, this kind of stuff, they'd be getting ripped to shreds for it. Like, oh, they have no vision for the future, things like that. I think they're just coming off ridiculously desperate. And you're right, Russell Wilson he's a starting quarterback, probably a lower tier. I actually like Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston's a fun quarterback to watch, as long as he's not on my team. But interesting, man. And I think it also shows that Aaron Rodgers is going to the Steelers. I think the Giants probably got wind that, he's not coming here. So instead of looking embarrassed where Rodgers signs and then you react, they're being proactive. Like, let's get our move done now. We know he's not coming here. Let's at least get this guy and then figure out our plan C.
Yeah, and this move also, it's a good point about Rodgers. It also, this move comes after, or like legit the day after the Cam Ward Pro Day, right, where Tennessee has the number 1 overall pick. They bring in guard Kevin Zeitler, a veteran, on a 1-year deal. Like, why would Zeitler, coming from Detroit, sign a 1-year deal with, statistically speaking, record-wise, the worst team in football? If there wasn't any sort of vision, if, what was the plan that was sold to Zeitler, in that pre-free agency, in that tampering period. And then they also go out and they pay more, right? You can argue they overpay him. Why the desperation? I get wanting to move JC Latham over to right tackle. That helps them, tremendously, but, on that right side. And Moore is definitely playable. Like, he's a starting caliber left tackle for sure. But, with the money that they gave him, that screams to me like, hey, the Titans are kind of gearing up to make some sort of move at the quarterback position. And, it's looking that way. Mike Borgonzi, of course, coming in from Kansas City, the team that bet on the upside with Pat Mahomes. Cam Ward, he has that immense upside. Of course, not to the level of Pat Mahomes, but still very, very high. And it's looking like the Giants are just out of reach. They're out of reach. And, as far as Shedeur Sanders to the Browns at spot number 2, if that's the pick there, adding Russ to the Giants, it gives them just that backup plan, right? Like, okay, we have Jameis. Say it again.
It's a Band-Aid. You're putting a Band-Aid on you're putting a Band-Aid on Titanic.
Yeah. I mean, you asked the question though, like, what's the Giants' plan? I mean, it's clear like they're trying to save their jobs. Like that's just the position. Like all those losses, all the question marks, all the weird press conferences, all the weird decisions. It's time to start moving in the right direction. What's the quickest way to do it? Without the number 1 pick, without the second overall pick, you don't want to run the risk of Sanders and Ward being off the board. Just go make the move for Russ and just, hope for the best.
Now, if you're the Titans, do you think Cam Ward is above and beyond like Shedeur Sanders, where it's like, is that completely like a tier 1, tier 2 kind of guy? Like where you say Cam Ward in their eyes is the only legitimate franchise quarterback for week 1? Or do you think that, is there a big gap between him and Shedeur or no?
So real quick, we got more breaking NFL news here. Adam Schefter, Stefon Diggs, 3 years, $69 million, New England Patriots.
Oh, Patriots are loading up, man. They are loading up. They had a ton of cap space, and you're going to give Drake May a nice. That's a lot of money. That's probably his last big payday too. So you look for it. Oof.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. Diggs steps into New England, easily the best pass catcher on the team.
Yep.
But he was traded out of Minnesota for a reason. He was traded out of Buffalo for a reason. Houston did not bring him back for a reason. How is that dynamic going to work with Drake May? Is there going to be, weird pressure to get him the football? Again, you could push back and say who else is really going to be the, main priority, with that offense. But now all of a sudden, right, if they get Travis Hunter, you're looking at just from a talent perspective, that floor has been raised tremendously for New England. So, dude, crazy couple moves here in the last hour.
Well, I mean, from the Jets fan perspective, you're looking at the AFC East. It's like you have the Jets have a long way to go, man, in terms of finding their quarterback. Hopefully it's Justin Fields. We don't know. But just to get yourself on the level of now, the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Patriots. The Patriots were a team that we always look down like, oh, at least we're better than them. They may have their young quarterback. They may have the quarterback, the head coach we wanted, and they're adding a ton of talent, man, a ton of legitimate talent that if they're well coached, they're going to be a threat. I'm not saying they're going to win 12 games. They're going to be very, very competitive. And the Jets have their hands full, man, in their own division.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of these moves where, you're looking at New England and it just, from just a straight up need perspective and a talent perspective as well, like Diggs is just such an upgrade over what they currently have. Yep. Like, I don't want to say that the Patriots are forced into doing anything because they don't necessarily have to. They've already made a bunch of free agent moves. They will get better purely just off of coaching and everything that they've done, not even including the draft class, top picks in every single round. But this move, how high am I personally on Stefon Diggs? Not really all that much. I think he's good. I think he's going to raise the floor for that Patriots offense. Definitely going to increase the talent level. But as far as him, duplicating what he was able to do in the, early couple years with the Buffalo Bills. Also, not to mention Diggs is coming off the injury. So
he's coming off an injury. He's still a quality veteran route runner. He's a legit threat, but it also kind of puts a spotlight back on the Jets where these teams are all making moves, man. They're being aggressive, getting their playmakers, trying to build around their young quarterback. The Jets, as of now, haven't really done that. You have Garrett Wilson, you have Breece Hall, but you still want these playmakers around them. Some teams are using free agency to do that. The Jets haven't done that, which is putting a premium on the draft now. To me, like the more we talk about this, it's like we need playmakers. First 3 rounds, like you can't really take a chance. Like, oh, I'll take a 4th round flyer on this guy. You want to have your biggest assets go to playmakers, right? At this point, you almost have to.
Yeah, I mean, you never want to like lock yourself into making set picks. Like, okay, we're forced into taking a pass catcher here. We need to zero in on a right tackle because once you start doing that, like you're willingly again, backing yourself into a corner that doesn't necessarily have to be there. The one thing I will say too for Aaron Glenn and Muji, they're not in a position like the Giants where it's you got to improve immediately. You need to make significant strides. These guys signed big contracts. They've talked a lot about building through the draft. You're not going to turn around a team that's had a horrible culture, tons of dysfunction at every turn, have this many changes as far as not only just personnel, but also in the upper, parts of management in the front office. You're not just going to have this quick turnaround and be like, okay, we're back. That's not how Detroit built,
Yeah,
how they.
I disagree with you, respectfully, of course. But it's like this is their first year, so they're getting a lot of opportunities to rebuild this. But if you take a calculated approach in free agency, where you're pretty much mid-tier to lower-tier shopping and ignoring very good value at very cheap prices, you're putting a premium on the draft. If you come up short in the draft and your offense is anemic, by your choice, it's a problem. Not saying you're going to fire anybody, but you're open to criticism then. So now right now we're talking about Tyler Warren, Ted McMillan, all these guys. That's fine. But you got to get these guys, and they had to contribute week one, because the thing you worry about is the Jets' offenses suck forever. You bring in Justin Fields here, you got to give him weapons to see what he can actually do. The last thing you want to see is there's nobody open, we can't run the ball, we can't do anything. We don't have enough talent. The Jets got to be in a talent acquisition business, and right now they're on a slow start. So now it's like, let's see what we do in the draft and then free agency after the draft. But I'm not giving them the ultimate pass. But you know what? This is your first year to figure things out. I'm going to let you slide. No, because a lot of receivers that were signed right before the last 2 weeks were cheap deals, dude. 1 year, $3 million, 1 year, $4 million. They weren't breaking the bank. Would you rather have that or what we have on our roster now?
Yeah, but if you're Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, are you, first of all, are like, you're looking at these options, right? All these guys that are signing, Westbrook, Akine, guys like that. Are they needle movers?
But is Malachi Corley, who hasn't done a thing in football yet? Like, it's not about
needle movers, but draft Corley.
Yeah, but I understand. But you've inherited him, so you know what he's on your roster. So to me, it's like you're not getting. I'm not saying go get Amari Cooper, but you got to get value signs that can be like veteran pass catchers that can run around and know where to go and be consistent. That's all we're asking. Now, somebody say, well, that could be Alan Lazard. I disagree. Alan Lazard is the opposite of that. He's ridiculously inconsistent. He's overpaid too. So this is the approach you're taking. I understand it. But you still have to get value and add playmakers to this team, because you don't want to be like, the excuse with Sal and Douglas their first year is, we inherited a terrible roster. Okay, we gave you that pass and we believed you for a couple of years, and you actually made the roster worse somehow, which is remarkable. Now this team, this regime, they have some talent here. They have some very good talent here, but now you need those role players to be added to it, and you have to add them, man. So it better be in the draft or it better be after, but you can't go into week one like, oh, you know what, we have Garrett Wilson, Malachi Corley, Alan Lazard, and some fourth-round flyer. That ain't going to work for me, dude, because they had chances to improve the room.
Right, but I will push back and say I just don't feel like how can you build? How can you take a team like the Jets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Playoff drought, again, culture, dysfunction,
right,
issue after issue over these past, handful of years. How can you take these jobs? New GM, new head coach, new coaching staff, new schemes, brand new everything. Rick Spielman added to the mix. Say we're going to build through the draft and then fix all the team needs in one draft.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm willing to concede a lesser defense this year to make my offense competent. Everybody says we need a defensive tackle, we need this, we need linebackers. I understand all that, but I'd rather have faith in Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks making, smoke and mirrors on that side of the ball to give us a very good offense. Because just say in a world Justin Fields doesn't work out this year, your quarterback to be named next year, I want pieces in place already for him next year. Have that person here now, learning the system, learning Tanner Engstrand, learning everybody else, getting used to Garrett Wilson. And then we say, okay, next year, plug and play. Now we have more pieces to the puzzle. I don't want to be like, oh, well, it didn't work out this year. Let's get our playmaker next year and the quarterback next year. You kind of you want to build from the ground up at the same time. So I'll sacrifice defense, dude. Honestly, I would, just to make sure we get, and it could be Tyler Warren and get a receiver in the second round. I'm cool with it, but you have to do it. I'm tired of watching terrible receiver play and an incompetent offense because no playmakers getting open.
God, you hate to just pin a lot of issues on one, individual or one section on the team, but could you imagine if some of these moves have panned out that they've made over these last, handful of years,
Yeah.
Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore, Malachi Corley, and who knows, right? We still, it's still a bit of an unknown. Does Xavier Gibson, how does that situation work? But even like the free agents, right? Lazard has been a disappointment. Corey Davis was a disappointment. It's just, outside of Garrett Wilson, there's been a lot of just swing and misses almost every single offseason. Not to mention like the tight end room, right? That's a position that still has not been fixed. So, I see what you're saying. I think the good news for the Jets, whether they go offense, whether they go defense, whether you want to like really get into the specifics, they go Membu, they go Warren, whoever, they trade back. They're going to come out of the draft as a better football team because we have so many needs. It's almost like impossible to screw it up, if that makes sense. I felt like, in my opinion, last season was also a great draft for the Jets, in the first round, because it's like, okay, we can go out and get Brian Thomas. That makes sense. That would be a huge, huge boost. We can go out and get Olu. We can go out and get Brock Bowers. A couple other players made sense for the Jets. But what happens if, whatever, Alt fell or Neighbors fell, right? It was just, or, Odunze, like there was just option after option. And you're just kind of sitting back, enjoying the draft as a Jet fan, knowing, okay, no matter what direction that they go in, we're going to come away with a better football team, or as a better football team with a really good football player. This year, I kind of, unless they maybe like reach on a defensive player that's not really like a position of need with like a really high ceiling, because like maybe like Aaron Glenn or Wilkes like is obsessed with someone's ceiling, like a Shamar Stewart or something like that. But, I don't know. I think we're in a pretty favorable position, and I just feel like it's hard to screw this position up if you are, Darren Muji here.
Yeah, but no, I agree. I think the first round pick is you feel safe and comfortable with what's going to be available to you and what they're going to take. But to me, it's like I'm going deeper than that. I think the first three picks, first three rounds, we talked about this last week, that they've got to be legitimate contributors. Like you can't take a project in the first three rounds. You need a guy that you feel very comfortable with, like, you know what, pretty much plug and play. You're starting week one, and or not week one, but by week two, week three, you're getting involved, and you're going to give us serious playing time throughout the season. You're going to have to, because you can make it. I mean, I don't mean to come off negative. I'm just trying to assess the roster where the Jets went into free agency. They lost a lot of players. Some of them by their own choice. Some chase bigger contracts, DJ Reed, Conklin, whatever else. But that's you lost a lot of talent. Now you have to replace it. The Jets, in terms of free agency, didn't really replace a lot of it with no names or veterans. You have obviously Justin Fields in the corner, but that's really it, man. So right now you're like, all right, lost a lot of talent, brought back a little bit. Where are you getting the rest of it from? It's going to be the draft for now, and then there's another tier of free agency, maybe cuts and trades or whatever else. But they have a lot of moves left to be made here, and I'm not giving them a pass, but it's okay. You're trying to figure it out. Nope. Now you have to hit big in the draft. You have to. This is your approach, and you have to. It's a lot of pressure, but that's a position they're in because they have so many, like they have like huge holes, man. Tight end position, enormous hole. Wide receiver, we know, right tackle. You need like another safety. It's a lot going on right now. And then the other thing too is you've got to figure out how to handle the guys on your current roster. Like if you're Quincy Williams right now, you've outplayed your contract. Last year your contract, you're turning 30 years old. So if you're him and his agent, you'd be like, you know what? I'm not playing another deal. I want a new contract because I earned it. I deserve it. And that's what I want. Well, how do you handle him? Because you just gave Sherwood that big money. Do you want to invest all that money at linebacker when you got to pay all this money everywhere else across the roster? Sauce, Jermaine, Garrett, maybe Brees. How do you handle Quincy Williams now?
Yeah, I mean, that's just a situation with me where, I'm looking at it saying, hey, it's not a big priority at this point in time. Like we're getting ready for the season. Of course, Quincy's a fantastic player. I want to see Quincy Williams back with the team, but I'm not like, I'm not, stressing out about it right now. I'm worried about the pro days, gathering, the athletic numbers, right there, all the testing and whatnot with all these different draft prospects. Who knows? Maybe the Jets end up drafting a linebacker in round 4 or 5 that they really, really like. They can develop under Quincy for a season and then allow him to walk. I mean, I don't know how the Jets are viewing it because, as we all know, they didn't pick any of these players outside of the free agents that they brought in. But they did elect to re-sign Sherwood, like you said, and they paid him pretty solid money. So he's going to be here. He's going to be given a lot of responsibilities within this defense. And we also know, too, that Aaron Glenn puts a ton of really just I mean, he really like you look at the linebacker play with Detroit, just the responsibilities that they have to do. They have to rush the passer, they have to stop the run, they have to drop back in coverage, they have to be able to read what the offense is doing post snap, relay. You kind of be the quarterback of the defense, and you're not going to give Sherwood 3 years, 45 mil coming off one really good season. And the team did not draft this player. The team doesn't have that extensive background on this player, and say, yeah, you're like average, or we don't really envision you being here.
Right.
Like you are being signed to be the guy here manning the middle. So that gives me hope. Right. And I also don't, based off of how Muji and Aaron Glenn have kind of operated so far, and just by the sound of their responses in press conferences, you don't think that they're going to get bullied by media or ownership. Like, you know what, you got to sign this player. Like he's a popular player, homegrown guy. We need him back. I think if they truly don't want a player, they're going to be fine moving on from him,
Right.
or at least making that decision.
Well, that's the question. Like, I'm not talking about the fans or media. I'm saying Quincy Williams walks into your office and says, "My contract, I want a new one. Like, I'm underpaid. I'm on the last year of my deal. I want to rework it. I want something new, or I want out of here." Then what do? You say, "All right, you know what? We're not paying you. We don't know what you're going to be in our defense yet. We want to see. Like you said, we inherited you. We want to see you in our defense, see how you perform. If it works out well, maybe we'll do that." Or he just knows. Listen, I know you're not going to pay me. You just gave Sherwood that money. You're not giving me that money. You got to pay all my friends. So then what do? That's not media pressure or the fans. That's the player in your office saying, "Let's fix this because I know you have cap money. And you have a lot of guys you got to pay. I want to be one of them because I've earned it. I'm an all-pro linebacker." You can't argue him because he's right. He's not wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I just kind of, bro, Quincy Williams is my favorite player in football,
right?
Or favorite player on the Jets. So, it pains me to say it, but if I'm Darren Muji, I'm not necessarily. I mean, because you're looking at the linebacker position right now. If you feel like you could get him on a solid, respectable, reasonable price, then okay, I really don't mind extending him. But I think the Jets have got to be careful with handing out a lot of extensions to players that they have not been coached by this group. They have not worked in this style of scheme before, both on offense or defense. And they've also have not been scouted for the most part, because you're not just scouting the players you draft, obviously. Like if you're Darren Muji, like they've done a ton of homework on all these different draft prospects and free agents. But they know where their needs a lot, where the voids in the roster are. I just, I think, if you start handing out all these extensions before the season starts and you're like, how does he respond? Well, how does he respond to Wilkes' coaching style? What about Tanner Engstrand? Is this guy really a fit for what Engstrand wants to do? Does Aaron Glenn maybe look at a player and think, hey, you know what, based off the tape, I think I could work with him. But then halfway through the season, you're like, hey, you know what? I feel like he's reached the ceiling. Oh, well, he's already on a 3-4 year deal because of just that initial inkling, because everyone's wrong. We've seen, throw any fantastic coach. They make wrong decisions, like the Chiefs, the Rams, Bill Belichick, like they've all, had bust draft picks and free agents signings that didn't work out and swings and misses at numerous positions. No one's like 100% perfect. So, I think right now, if I'm the Jets, it's like, hey, like my response to Quincy would be, I want you here. You're a great player. But as far as just, the environment that we're in right now, it might not just be, the reason why we gave Sherwood the money was because he's an unrestricted free agent. Right now, you're still on the contract. Our intention is to keep you, and our intention is to give you a contract that you deserve. But we're going to go into the season and stand pat.
Yeah, because I think the Sherwood signing was an excellent message to the locker room, where Sherwood's a player in the rise, team MVP. He's going to be a captain. Like he's a guy that they all respected. You keep him in the mix. It's a good message to the locker room. But now the guys in the locker room are like, all right, who's the next man up? We all like a lot of these guys are looking at, they want new deals. So that's going to be for Muji and Glenn the way to figure out how to handle all of that while they go into the draft, and while there's also other moves that can be made too. Like I saw one mention in the chat, like a Tyler Lockett. I would love a Tyler Lockett. I think it'd be a great signing for the Jets. If they do that, you feel a lot better where you have, I don't say draft flexibility, but takes a little bit pressure off of, I got to go get a receiver in round 2. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of moves where it sways things. Like when you feel that way, like if they sign Lockett today, okay, if we take Tyler Warren in the first round, tight end, wide receiver, good. Second round, we can change it up a little bit. Maybe you can get your tackle or you change your vision a little bit. So there's so many moving pieces, man.
Yeah, I know, which makes it like just all that more fun. Just kind of like dive in and check everything out. Really analyzing rosters, but and also too, just to kind of add on to your point, the draft isn't the only way that the Jets can get better here. Like we're talking like waiver pickups. Who knows like what young players are going to become available, post draft. Guys that maybe have maybe talented young players that are on teams with new coaching staffs, right? Like, for example, like the Saints, Kellen Moore, Brandon Staley come in. He's changing that whole defensive scheme. So is there maybe is there a player in that Saints defense that's kind of hidden on the depth chart that's a perfect fit for Aaron Glenn's defense, right? That, press man coverage, 4 down linemen, again, lots of responsibilities to the linebackers. Is there someone stashed on that Saints defense that just doesn't really fit the new 3-4 style that Staley wants to, run? And the Saints are like, hey, we really like you. And the regime, obviously Loomis drafted you high, or, relatively high, just assuming here. But just because of the schematics and the overall nature of the fit at the position or the system, we're just going to move on. And all of a sudden the Jets can go out and land a starter like that, So, what happens if a player from Denver gets released that, Muji likes or Detroit, stuff like that. So it's not like on whatever it is, April 26th, that last day of the draft. It's like, well, great. This is it. This is the only opportunity, right? And also trades too.
No, I agree with you. Like we always say, like I always say, listen, talk to me in August. August is when you figure out who your roster really is. Like your moves, for the most part, been made. Obviously, some last minute, like wheel and dealing. But in August, what you're pretty much made of, barring injuries. And like you said, like after the draft, a guy could fall to a team. They draft that makes somebody else expendable. Like we have a young guy to replace you. You're out of here. So a lot of things can happen. But I would like to see the Jets be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe not the draft, but post draft. Then like be a little more aggressive, and you can get your value deals and just keep adding talent, man. Like I don't say they're complacent. Don't be overcalculated where you're, kind of not adding that piece. Because I just want to see Justin Fields succeed, man. I really do. I want to see this offense develop their like identity this year, whether it's ground and pound, whatever it is, and then keep getting better every year, not taking a step back. Like one good year, take a step back, figure it out. Like let this young group all grow together. Garrett Wilson's still young. Breece Hall's still young. Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, they're all young. Get them now together and build your offense starting this year,
Yeah, and speaking of the draft and adding young pieces to the team. So Aaron Glenn was at the Texas Pro Day today.
Yeah.
And there are just a ton of players. A lot of players that make sense for the Jets, bro. If we're being honest. Yep. Matt Golden, I actually just saw his name pop up here. Pick Golden from Texas.
Yeah.
Golden round 2. I don't think he's lasting until round 2, man. I think he is, after that, what was it, 4.2940? That like I think the floor is Chargers at 22, maybe. Like I can't see Golden getting past, that spot. And then also like you're looking at like the wide receiver needy teams at the top of round 2, like Cleveland could use a receiver. Yeah. There's been some Brandon Ayuk trade buzz with Cleveland. I don't know how true or accurate that is, but Tennessee could use another wide receiver. Who knows what the Giants do, but do they bring in someone like there's a lot of Raiders as well. I don't think Golden lasts until 42, man. But he's still an interesting player. Maybe the Jets want to move back a couple slots. Shedeur Sanders starts to fall. Yeah. Team wants to come up and snag him. Pittsburgh, who knows? Who knows? But maybe the Colts love a tight end.
What would be the ideal characteristics of the wide receiver you want? Like you already know what you have in Garrett Wilson for the most part. Do you want that? This is why I understand the whole Ted McMillan thing with the size, the catchphrase, everything like that. But do you want that explosive speedster? Like, what are you looking for in a wide receiver like that you think would be a good fit for this offense based on what we think it's going to be?
I think, it's tough, right? Because first of all, we still don't know what's happening with Lazard. I'm going to assume he's not on the team. I just don't know what's going on at this point. So just taking him away just putting him aside, we have Garrett. He's going to do his thing. I feel like it's a safe bet. He's going to go out and get the 1,000 yards, 1,000 receiving yards. So when I'm looking at other wide receivers specifically, size is a good thing. We don't have much size of the position, right? Garrett Wilson, again, no Lazard in the scenario. Garrett Wilson, Gibson, Corley, Tyler Johnson. Tyler Johnson, he's decent size, but it's not like, menacing. He's not like a, power forward catching alley-oops out there, where McMillan presents that. McMillan also has that catch radius, which I think is just big time. McMillan's smooth after the catch too. He's not just this, big possession wide receiver that's just like slow and sluggish coming, trying to like this is someone who actually has, I would say a decent amount of acceleration and, he can like get up to a top speed. Like he's not just like a slug out there, like at all. Like he looks like a real natural athlete given his size, whatever it is, 6'4", 215. I don't remember the exact weight. I think it's 6'4", 212, 6'4", 250. Regardless, we all know McMillan's a bigger wide receiver, but he doesn't move like, some of these bigger guys that come into, the league, and it's just like, okay, you're just kind of the possession guy. We just hope that you can win one-on-one to the outside in like the short to medium range, right, of the passing game. So McMillan, I think, just makes a ton of sense. He also can hurt defenses down the field. I mean, he was a big play machine. He had the back-to-back years of production with Arizona.
But if you were gonna look at, I agree with what you're saying, but if you had a choice between Tyler Warren or McMillan, who would you take?
At 7?
Yep.
I think I would rather go with Tyler Warren because I don't think McMillan could be a top 5 receiver in football, but I do think Ward in time could be a top 5 tight end. And you also look at, and this is actually, I filmed this video. I haven't done the editing for it yet, but you take a look at Justin Fields' track records working with tight ends, Cole Kmet, throughout the years, they've always been targeted. Like Fields likes to throw over the middle of the field. Fields really likes to get his tight ends involved. And, of course, McMillan comes in, would be a huge upgrade. He'd be a huge boost. It'd be awesome. The offense, it would perk up and show, some life. Tyler Warren, same deal. I do think, the overall ceiling, Tyler Warren, again, like if 3 years from now, what's the realistic possibility that we're talking about Tedero McMillan being a top 10 wide receiver? I would say it's probably pretty slim. Top 25, 30 wide receiver. Yeah, that's definitely realistic. But top 10, like there are so many good receivers in football, not to mention the guys coming out in the future draft classes as well. But with Tyler Warren, it's like, you're thinking top 5 tight ends. You're thinking, okay, Kittle, Hawkinson, Bowers. I'll still put Kelsey up there despite the retirement rumors. Like there's a decent amount of, a solid, Mark Andrews, like a decent amount of tight ends, but Tyler Warren truly year one, top 10 tight end instantly the day he steps foot into the Jets facility. But then of course, you have the whole argument, okay, positional value.
And that was my question for you was like, okay, and then you broke it down perfectly, but then it's like, what's the overall value impact on the team based on the guy you draft? And to me, it's like you can make a case for Tyler Warren where it's like, okay, be your safety valve for Justin Fields, good run blocker, which also helps. Like he has more of an impact, could be based on his well-rounded abilities in the pass game and in blocking, as opposed to a receiver like Ted McMillan. So to me, it's like I understand the tight end position, but the overall impact on the team day one, as opposed to McMillan, could be greater and actually helps the Jets much more early on. Maybe not be the case in 2 years from now, but I think for this year, probably help more.
Yeah, and what's interesting too about both players, you can move them around. Like Warren, I mean, you can dial up wildcat stuff. You could have Warren throw the football, and that stuff. Yeah. Whatever. We're splitting hairs here, but it's a $1 billion organization that has to make the right decisions. And when you're talking about just any sort of extra, hey, this feather in the cap, this is just another pro or positive that this player can do that the other player can't. Yeah. I think it needs to be talked about, right? What happens in whatever week 13, it's 3rd and 9, and Tanner Inkstrand and Aaron Glenn, the coaches that are coming from a team in the Detroit Lions that run a lot of trick plays, want to reach into their playbook and draw up a trick play. Well, Tyler Warren kind of excels in that area. It's just like small little like details like that I think have got to be talked about. But with McMillan, you can move him around. Like you can line up McMillan in the slot. He's had success there. So both players, I think, would add like a creative type of element to the passing game, which is something that we just simply don't have, because right now, like, just put yourself in the shoe, and we don't know who the Jets are playing week 1, but just put yourself in the shoes of like a defensive coordinator, right? That's playing the Jets, and you're getting ready. You're looking at the roster, and it's like, okay, how do we stop this offense? We know Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis are going to be getting the rock. Yep. We know they have some solid offensive linemen up front. We know that these guys are coming in from Detroit. They want to run the football. So you know what? Like, we have a pretty good idea of their identity. We also know that Garrett on the outside is a freaking threat. Mm-hmm. So you know what? They don't really have much else in the pass game. We can, shade over a safety, yep. Do whatever. We can neutralize Garrett because they don't really have much of, maybe pop or talent at the other pass catching positions. And then, of course, you have the whole Justin Fields mobility, which you have to take into effect. But, if a team is trying to stop the run, chances are you're going to have like that extra defender like in the box anyway. Yep. So if you all of a sudden add a Tyler Warren or McMillan, or even just throw in Matt Golden, in there as well. I mean, that blazing speed, just playmaker. All of a sudden you're giving defensive coordinators like, oh, hold on a second. Maybe we can't double Garrett. Who do we have a corner that can line up with McMillan on the outside that presents some size? This guy's, he's a jump ball specialist. Yep. Red zone specialist. Like, this guy, he can get downfield. It's not just some one trick pony. He can, affect you with the football in his hands after the catch. So it kind of opens things up a little bit. And if it's like, okay, well, we need to stop the run. Oh, okay, we got to stop Garrett. Keeps him on. Now we have to stop McMillan and Fields in the running game. It's like, whoa. And then you throw on top of it the creativity. Warren in the slot. Warren lined up on the O-line. Warren lined up out wide. Like, I'm not going to sit here and rule it out and say that Warren can't do that. Right. If you want to dial up some sort of package for him. What happens if you put Warren in the backfield as a running back and have Fields there? Like, if you're DC, you're like, okay, this with Fields mobility, like this ball can go wherever. Like, we have no idea what to kind of expect. It just kind of adds wrinkles to the offense. The more, creative pieces that you can, acquire.
And that you made my point for me, so I'm so glad you did that. That's exactly what I want. You want that versatility, you want that flexibility, and you want playmakers to keep opposing defenses honest and give you a chance to win games. But man, if you go that route, say it's either Warren or McMillan at 7, do you consider moving AVT to right tackle? Because now everybody's like, we need a right tackle. Everybody wants Membu, right? But so if you say you go Tyler Warren, you're not getting your top 2 tackles; they're gonna be gone. Do you say let's move AVT to right tackle and worry about getting a guard? Maybe it's Myers, whoever it is. Like, you don't know who it is, but do you consider doing that, or say no? I still feel comfortable that in the second round, maybe I trade up and get somebody. I can get a tackle in round 2, round 3. Like, what's your how much of a priority do you put on getting a right tackle in the draft, or do you consider making a move like moving AVT over?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I'm keeping AVT at guard. Guard is his best position. We've seen really, really good play from AVT there. He's ending the season and he's healthy. I think that's something that needs to be talked about with someone who's experienced not only just 1 season-ending injury, but 2 season-ending injuries. I don't think moving him around the O-line helps. Okay. Tackle, guard, left side, right side. Just put him at one position. Like, if I'm a general manager, dude, like it's my responsibility to find talent and fill holes on the roster. I'm not trying to Josh Myers, like I can get him for 3.5 mil and we're just going to force AVT out to right tackle and move Tippmann to guard because it's easier, financially speaking and this and that. Like, no, AVT's he's at his best when he's a guard. Okay. He's healthy. Just keep him at one position. It's my job to find a right tackle. So
then where do you, I agree with you because I kind of like him there as well. So then it's like, where do you get your right tackle? Do you feel comfortable waiting to round 2 and maybe move up in round 2 to get one? Or you say, no, there's value where I can get one in the third round if I want to go wide receiver in round 2? Like, how do you address right tackle, or is there one on a roster? Maybe there is. I don't think so, but maybe there is.
Well, with right tackle, it's like I feel better about, because whenever you're talking about these positions, like in my opinion, I think it's smart to talk about them as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
What O line out there can you look down the board and say, oh, our left tackle's great, our left guard's great, our center's great, and just go down the board. Everyone is great. Not many. Like most of the time, O lines have a weak link.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have the ability to fix that weak link and roll out a stacked squad, Bucks, Lions, Bills, it's another fantastic O line. You do it, and you make it happen, right? It's just so important.
Yep.
But I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before at the start of the stream, right? Where it's like the Jets have a lot of needs. We can go in a bunch of different directions, and we're probably going to walk away with a good player filling a need. So if you want to go Membu and try to target like a pass catcher later, okay, cool. It's fine with me. If you want to go with the pass catcher early and try to find right tackle later, okay, that's cool. But I definitely don't feel like that immediate pressure. Like, oh my God, like we got to fix right tackle immediately.
Why am I? We're just arguing tonight. I think we're just gonna disagree all night. But I agree with what you're saying. But to me, the offensive line is the anchor of your team. It's the most important group that you have on your team, and it's been a mess for the Jets forever. You have 4/5 of it. To me, it's like if you're in the early stages of building your team and building your offense and everything else, why not solidify your anchor now and get it over with? Especially with a 20-year-old kid. I mean, having him and Olu as bookend tackles for next decade would be pretty cool. That's called fixing a huge issue. So you can make a case for that. But if you don't want to go that route, then we can't be like, oh, it's not a huge priority. We can get round 3, round 4. You know what? It should be a priority because that's how you're going to run the football and protect your quarterback. So, I understand what you're saying. You're not going to address the Jets have 12 needs. You're not getting all 12, but you want to address 3 or 4 important ones. The offensive line's an important one. Like, don't half-ass that. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, if you go playmaker round 1, completely cool with it. But let's not go defensive player round 2 and be like, oh, we can get a project right tackle and just let it fly and maybe we'll coach him up. And that's the other thing too that we got to keep mentioning is the Jets were so poorly coached. We don't know what half these guys are even going to be. They can actually be better players than we think they are because they could get quality coaching now, which is a huge difference maker. But I'm curious to see like what's your level of confidence in the overall depth of at tackle position in the draft. Is it something where like everybody says, oh, it's a good wide receiver class, it's a good class for this good tight end class. Is a tackle class the same in your opinion where you can get good value in round 3?
I mean, it really just depends on like, your definition of value. I mean, there's some like solid players, like Cornelius from Oregon, I think is interesting. By the way, Cameron Williams, Texas, at the Texas Pro Day today, just humongous right tackle. Maybe that could be an option. 21 years old, amazing in the running game. Could that be someone who's there in the 3rd round? I don't know. I feel like he's maybe a top of round 3, bottom of round 2 type of guy.
Would you like that approach though? Like, would you be comfortable with that? If that's what the approach they take, like we're not going to put a premium on tackle in the first couple of rounds. We're going to address other holes, and then we're going to get who we think is best in round 3 to try to address that need. Would you be cool with that? Like, okay, let's see what they can do with that.
Yeah, because that's under the assumption that we're getting. First of all, it's a decision that they've made. In year 1 of the regime, like it's important in year 1 to set the tone, right? You can't like start like first year GM. You can't just hit free agency, not sign a bunch of players, come to the draft and draft a bunch of guys that don't work out.
Right.
Look at Joe Douglas early on, like just how much that set the team back.
Yeah.
Becton not on the team, Mims not on the team, James Morgan not on the team. Ashton Davis was the only kind of one hanging around. Who was the other one? Jabari Zuniga. I don't. Too. Yeah, like dude, unfortunately, Cam Clark had to deal. He had the injury, which sucked, but it's just another player that's just not on the team. So we're looking back at the first, draft class, and it's like, okay, well, that was a handful of years ago, and none of these guys are even on the team anymore. Ashton Davis is now a Dolphin. So when you have a draft class where it's just whiff. A couple years later, you're like, wow, we could have really used the 3 or 4 extra just players on the team, whether they're stars or not.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if that's what the Jets want to do, that's what they want to do. I think it makes it easier. Like, so last year I was all in with Olu. Like that was my number 1 option. Yeah. Unless Joe Alt fell, then I was like a little, okay, I don't know who I would go with, but I didn't think that Alt would fall. So I'm like, okay, if Olu somehow gets a 10, I want to scoop him up.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a left tackle, like a long-term option at the left tackle position. I loved Olu as a prospect. And also for context too, JC Latham, Joe Alt, Olu, I think are all three of those guys are better than every tackle in this year's class.
Okay.
I think all three of those guys would be the pick at spot number 4 for New England if they were in this upcoming class.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, before the draft, I felt like they were can't miss the generational types of guys, but I felt like really, really comfortable like with all three of those guys. But Olu was like, okay, he's the one that I feel like is the best in pass pro. And we had a bunch of unknowns. We had ABT coming off the injury.
Mm-hmm.
Tippmann was still a young player. Like, how is he going to work with Aaron Rodgers coming back, snapping him the football?
Yeah.
All the checks that Rodgers makes at the line of scrimmage, like Tippmann's got to be on top of it. At the time, we didn't know what John Simpson was going to look like with this Jet squad, coming in from Baltimore. We had like a lot of question marks. So it's like, okay, let's just go get the sure thing at left tackle, the most important position. And he's super young and he's the best pass blocker in the draft. And he projects well to the next level. And he has Tyron Smith to, work with. And it's not to say that Brian Thomas or, Brock Bowers would have been the wrong pick.
Okay. So based on exactly what you just said right now, do you have the same feeling about Membu?
I like Membu. I don't feel as safe with Membu as I do with Olu. But if Membu was on the team right now, like if the draft is tomorrow, Membu is easily the starting right tackle.
Oh yeah, but like where would he go last year?
I'd have to look at the draft order. I would say he would probably be that fourth tackle off the board.
So like that's interesting. The way you broke it down was awesome, dude. I love the way you break that down. So now you had that feeling about Olu. Who's that guy you had that feeling about this year in round 1? Is it Tyler Warren? Is it like, it doesn't seem like it's Membu. I think you like Membu, but you're not like he's like your draft love. Who's that guy that you absolutely love at that pick 7? Is it Tyler Warren?
Well, I actually don't feel that strongly. I think Travis Hunter is the best player in the draft.
Okay.
But like with Olu, I was just kind of like kicking my feet up, just saying like, hey, if he's the pick for the Jets, like I think we're gonna be good. If Joe Alt's the pick, I think we're gonna be fine. Brian Thomas, Bowers, like we're getting like an instant impact day 1 animal that projects, that like has a high ceiling, like, hey, this guy can actually be like a top 10 guy at his position. This year, I don't really have that conviction with the majority of the players. I still really like these players for sure, but you have to pick someone. You can't just say no, we're going to take our pick.
No, I understand that, but I was trying to see if you had that that really passionate player, like this is the guy I really want. This is the guy that I think will have the biggest impact, like bar none, in this draft. But it seems like everybody's kind of wavering back and forth, like Membu, Warren. Then you see like Mason Grant, everybody's kind of all over the place. Where it's not like that consensus guy that everybody wants. Where it's like this is a must-have for the Jets. I don't think there's a player out there that's that guy, especially with no quarterback going to be available.
Yeah, well, I also think too, it's like, again, just focusing on like okay, so if you want to go down that rabbit hole, right? Membu versus Warren. And you can make positive, pros and cons with all these different, prospects and stuff, but like say you want to argue for Warren, right? Or actually real quick, where are you kind of leaning right now? Like what would be, even if it's 51-49 and we're still a month out. So
I'm saying Warren, to be honest with you. I keep going back and forth. I think last week I said Membu, but I keep focusing on playmaker, the impact he can have in the pass game and the run game, and having that threat that you mentioned earlier, Justin Fields. It's a perfect safety valve. It's a nice target in the middle of the field. So that would be, I think I'm leaning towards him right now. But then my concern is always, it's like, and then I worry about the offensive line again. I'm like, what about round 2? Who are you going to get there? So I think today I'll probably say Tyler Warren. And I wouldn't go McMillan, to be honest with you.
Okay, so, let's just kind of, live in that hypothetical, right? Jets go with Tyler Warren. We get a huge upgrade at tight end. He's going to help in the run game, the pass game, give Fields like a security blanket over the middle of the field. We're adding someone who, has a potential, I think a top 10 tight end immediately, but someone who can be a top 5 tight end. And also too, just a quick little, side tangent with Tyler Warren, right? If you truly think that he could be a top 5 tight end in football, those guys don't hit the market. Everyone wants to talk about like the tight end. Oh, the tight ends don't get paid a lot. Tight ends aren't like a it's like a luxury position, which I agree with to some extent. But the Kelseys, the Kittles, Bowers, Mark Andrews, they're not going to hit the open market. So, and if somehow one does, like Tony Gonzalez back in the day, or like TJ Hawkinson, you have to pay a ton for them.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like if you want to trade for one or whatever. You're not just going to trade a 5th rounder and go get a top 5 tight end. Like it just doesn't work like that. It's similar to like left tackle. Like every once in a while you'll see like a fantastic one hit the market, but if they're great and the team loves them, like they're just going to re-sign. So if you take Tyler Warren, you're essentially drafting access to a top 5 tight end guy in your eyes for the rest of his career. And you don't, with the cap going up too, you don't have to really pay them a ton of money relative to wide receiver, $40 million. What are the wide receivers going to be getting paid in 2028? Today's 2020 or it's 2025 now. By the end of Warren's rookie deal, I don't think tight ends are going to be at $40 million, which is what receivers are getting today. So if you take a McMillan and you say, he works out, whatever, great. But in 5 years from now, after that 5th-year option, what are receivers going to be getting paid? And again, the cap's going up, so it's not going to be like as bad as it sounds now.
Yeah.
But I just can't envision a tight end getting paid $40 million per season. So you're getting a really, really good player at a huge position of need that's going to help your quarterback and your running game. Top 5 potential. You're never really envisioning a big contract being handed out to Warren ever in his career. That's pretty awesome. But then, of course, the issue is right tackle. Let's just assume we don't go right tackle in round 2 or 3. I think the question is, okay, what can we do there now? It's, I think it's a lot easier to say, okay, we have these 4 other O-linemen figured out. Throw Okafor, Max Mitchell, Carter Warren. If all 3 of them are terrible, unplayable, then it's like, okay, you know what? We're just going to kind of enter game plans more with running backs lining up on that right side, chipping the edge rusher, and helping out that right tackle maybe a little bit more often, and hope that,
that'd be something that you'd want to see in training camp, where if they have that, they go that route. So listen, they have like a open battle, open competition for these 4 guys, work it out. And in training camp, you say, listen, man, these guys ain't cutting it. Then you make a move. Then like we got to change it up and go get your veteran. Then be aggressive there. Where listen, we tried it out. We gave everybody a chance to compete for the job. They're not getting it, and then we move on and go different routes. So that could be a variable too.
Yeah, and another thing too, it's like you have Fields' mobility as a as a weapon in your arsenal. You can roll like look at the Detroit Lions offense, right? You can roll Fields out to the left a lot. Direct snap to Fields and just kind of do like a speed out with Fields where the play's going straight to the left. So you can kind of do things throughout the game and in preparation. If the issue is, we're talking about right tackle like it's me or you lining up out there. Like there's still like who knows? The offensive coaching staff last season was awful.
That's true.
What happens, dude, if Ingstrand, all these different guys coming in say, you know what, Okafor, like you were a starter for Pittsburgh for a couple years. We like your size. We like your potential. We think we can make it work. And like if he plays like the 21st, 22nd ranked right tackle of football, is that the worst thing in the world?
Nope. No, that's a good point. And that's where if you go that route, then you can use your premium assets on your playmakers or something else. Then you get your wide receiver, you get your tight end, go get a defensive tackle or whatever else you want, and then you can go that route. That's why this draft is probably the most interesting one in a long time for the Jets, because there's so many freaking ways they can do things, and we have no idea what their plan is. We don't know what they're going to do at all. Like there's no leaks out of building, which is great, but we generally don't know because there's so many different ways they can handle this. It's so fascinating, man.
Yeah, it's I would feel differently if we had like numerous holes on the O-line. Like if we like really needed left guard, we really needed right tackle, and like Joe Tippmann was like iffy. I'm like, I don't really know how I feel, but because I feel great about the other 4, I'm like, okay, you know what, we can, and that's assuming that we don't pick one up in round 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That's assuming we just roll into the season with just the 3 guys that we currently have. But yeah, Cornelius from Oregon, Ozzie Trapilo from Boston College, Williams from Texas. Like there's things that you can, of course, Membu, right? But like there's, there's going to be. It's not like it's Membu and everyone else is unplayable.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why you always ask, like, what's the depth of the position? What's the drop off from like the top 2 to bottom 5? Like, there's always like everybody has like they rank their guys in tiers, tier 1, 2, tier 2, tier 3. What's the drop off from tier 2 to tier 3? Is it? And then it's like a lot of this comes down to coaching. Is it simple as it sounds? It's like if you're well coached and you're prepared and you play as a cohesive unit, everybody plays better. If you're a bunch of individuals that are poorly coached playing for yourself, it's a disaster, which we saw last year. So coaching is huge here. And I'm trying to give them the benefit of doubt. Think it's going to be, it can't be as bad as last year because we've seen some of the worst coaching we've seen in the last couple of years. So it's got to be better than that, which gives you value. A mobile quarterback helps, the ability to run, so it's really interesting, man. It is. I change my mind every day. Keep going back and forth with it.
Yeah. And real quick before we wrap it up here, just in the case of Membu, right? If you want to go with him,
yep,
you can say, all right, well, we can go out and get a 20-year-old who would be the best right tackle today on this Jets team.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you with all the hype around him, maybe it's because they're just Jet fans, but what happened to Will Campbell, though? Is he not going to be – could Membu now go earlier and Will Campbell be available to Jets instead? Could that be like the draft surprise?
You know what team I think makes a lot of – like man, like – because you're trying to project, right? And then you said the thing about the Jets before. You don't know what we don't have a clue what the Jets are doing. We don't really know what any team is doing. Like especially now, dude. After this news with the Giants getting Russ, like, are they for sure going to be taking a quarterback at 3? I don't know, but
I don't think so.
So who was it? Mike Tannenbaum came out with the mock draft and had Membu going to New England. The only way you make that pick is if you feel like Membu can play on the left side, because you're not going to take Morgan Moses on a 3-year deal and play him at left tackle in the first time it was, in his entire career. Like that to me just doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I think Jacksonville at 5, dude, because that's another team that has like a brand new regime and they're coming in from the Rams. The GM is super young. How much does he value athleticism? Because you're looking at these mock drafts and it's like, Mason Graham to Jacksonville. And, that'd be a great pick, but Mason Graham's not the most, athletic guy out there.
Mm-hmm.
What happens, dude? Just like, because we know that GMs have their preferences. What happens if he's like into drafting athletic guys in the top 5?
Yep.
And Membu's the most, based 100%. Off of combine, Membu is the most athletic O-lineman in the class. You're looking at Liam Cohen, where'd he come from? Tampa Bay, top 5 O-line. Like, you could take Anton Harrison there and maybe play him at guard, or because they also brought in Patrick McCarry from Baltimore. Do you make Harrison like that go-to backup, and you go for the upside swing with Membu? I don't know. Like, I don't think it's a guarantee that he's going to be there at 7, which is a good point. But Will Campbell, I think, is a guard to me.
So that's my question for you is like, if say Membu does go earlier than we think he will, say he goes to Jacksonville, then you're like, okay, if it's down to Will Campbell or Tyler Warren, it's Tyler Warren. Like, is that where you're standing now? Like, Will Campbell's not a guy that is going to be on the Jets' radar. It's like I go a completely different direction then.
Personally, I'm not going to sit here and say Will Campbell's a bad prospect. I still think he's a first rounder, but I just, you have the arm length concern that everyone's, been bringing up, below average arm length. And also too, like, for context, it's like, if arm length is an issue in college, chances are it's going to be an issue. Like if the measurables aren't good, but if it's not really showing up in college, it's like, okay, you can maybe argue, yeah, it's still a concern, but he's working with it, he's managing, he's working, with the traits that he has, and he's getting it done. But if that issue is, clear in college, and he does not have the measurable, and it's showing up at the combine, then it starts saying like, oh, you're starting to think, okay, well, if the DNs are bigger, stronger, faster, DCs are smarter, this is probably going to continue on as an issue. Like spatial awareness with Will Campbell. There's a lot of people that think Will Campbell's a guard. And a lot of people also think Membu could be a guard, be a better guard too. But with Membu, I feel a lot better with him at right tackle, where he's played, back at Missouri and had a ton of success with, in the SEC, compared to taking Will Campbell and putting him at the right side. To me, it's just, and also too with Will Campbell, he's not the big, like he doesn't have the biggest frame.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he would be horrible. Like I could easily see Will Campbell going to 11 to San Fran or Miami 13.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of thinking. Like with all this hype around Membu now, it's like, and something like this starts rolling, it's always happens. It's always that draft day surprise. Like, oh, wait a minute, he's not even available at 7. Like he could be gone already, and that's where a lot of our plans then come down. Like you want Tyler Warren or somebody else. Like then it's like who moves up and who falls. Like if Membu goes early, it means somebody fell to you. So that's why there's so many like moving parts to this, which is it gets really interesting.
Yeah, Ryu, this is an interesting point. Tooney was a guard and has short arms. He played tackle for the Chiefs and did okay until it came against going up against elite guys. Tooney got killed in the Super Bowl. He had problems with the Eagles' defensive ends. Yeah, like it's not going to be, I'm not sitting here saying that Will Campbell can't play, and who knows? Like if you're, for example, like if you're a team like, say you're a team like the 49ers will use or Miami, right? Like they're starting 2 tackles, Trent Williams, Armstead up there in age. You don't really know how long you're going to be getting like this type of production for. Also kind of expensive. In that first 2 years of the rookie deal, Will Campbell can stick in at guard, which is a big position of need for both of those teams.
Yeah.
And then when those 2 vets leave, do you want to maybe experiment with Will Campbell, sticking him at left tackle, and all of a sudden, okay, a couple years of NFL experience, couple years NFL weight room, strength program, maybe he's a little bit bigger, maybe he's a little bit stronger, maybe he surprises you, or maybe you just keep him at guard and you get a really good player there, because both San Francisco and Miami, they're not tanking bad teams. I think San Francisco might take a step back, but the Kyle Shanahan isn't going into the year saying like, yeah, we're hoping to get 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah, no, it's
there's pressure on Mike McDaniel as well. So maybe that could be the play, or you draft them and you say, okay, we're going to start you at left tackle. If it's a big issue in camp and joint practice, whatever, then we're going to put you at guard and just kind of move forward like that. So, I'm not sitting here saying he should be a 4th rounder or anything like that. Like, because he was still really, really good for LSU. Lots of starts at LSU going up against Bama and Georgia and Ole Miss and A&M and Florida, all these stacked D lines. Like, Campbell has a ton of production, but he's not like a sure I don't think he's a sure thing.
And that's something, when you say something like that, it makes you nervous as a top 7 pick. You know what I mean? Like you want that, like how you talked about Olu, like previously, that's where you want to kind of eliminate those concerns or like that little risk and go with the more of the foregone conclusion in your opinion in terms of your, assessment of the player. So it's so many, like it's wild. This is like so different than most years.
Yeah. And like, if you take a look at some of the, what guards are getting paid in the free agent market, like Robert Hunt got $100 million.
Yeah.
Like if you feel like, hey, Will Campbell or Membu, or, take your pick with any one of the, I really like Tyler Booker from Alabama. Like if you really feel like these guys Kelvin Banks is another one, tackle, guard, maybe some teams view him as a guard, some view him as a tackle. Like if they come in and you hit on that position and you don't have to really worry about it, like, yeah, it's not this like the sexiest pick out there, but that could really be like just like a nice, solid, safe pick for a team that's that's gunning for the playoffs. If you're a team like that's why I hate the pick with New England at 4, like with Membu and Will Campbell. It's like, again, for context, I don't hold this group of O linemen. To me, it's like you're drafting like for pure need at that point. And I get wanting to draft for need, especially in this class. But like top 5 pick, I don't want to take a guard. Like I think that's a little too rich, and especially a guard that you're kind of looking at and you're like, I don't know if he could be a top 5 guard in football.
No, I completely agree. And you think they'd probably go playmaker? They can do all kinds of things too. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't discount guards, but he's definitely not taking a guard at pick 7. No, that's just not where I'm going.
Dude, there was a little stretch where the Jets just could not get guard right. You remember
They
that?
couldn't get a lot right, man. They still haven't gotten quarterback right. It's been how many years? Hopefully it's Justin Fields, but
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. I think we covered a lot.
yeah, I'm excited, man. There's so many different things. Like, and as you know, I think what the owners' meeting is next weekend or it's coming up. So that means Woody Johnson will meet the media. I think Aaron Glenn probably does as well. So we'll get more takes from the front office and what they're talking about, what their vision is. So it's gonna be some slowly but surely news start coming out, and maybe the Jets will sign a player or maybe re-sign one of their own. So who knows?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. But yeah, anyway, thanks so much for everyone hanging out. Over 300 people in the chat, man. I appreciate you guys. Tuesday night here next week, we're going to be over on Tyson's channel. Let's Talk Jets Radio. And yeah, thanks so much for everyone watching. Really appreciate you guys. And as always, go Jets.